entrepreneurship must be the foundation of any wealth building plan. It's not about net worth, it's about cash flow.
Get some money first, learn how to do that, then think about like the long term.
The most profitable skill is speaking. The most profitable profession is sales. The most profitable knowledge is financial.
It's just a continual work on myself and developing and learning and studying people with success.
I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't know what to do. I can't do that, or I can't afford it. I'm like, no, you just need to know what's required. And it's really just three things, Scott. Number one, you got to have
real interviews, real guests, no actors, real talk, get prepared for Free Factor.
Hey, what's up? Scott Freedevore with the Free Factor podcast. I'm here with a special guest, Nate. Scott, I love your surname. But man, we're going to talk about you being a veteran, you being an entrepreneur, doing some big things, within the entrepreneurial space here in Jacksonville. I know we kind of crossed some paths. You think you lived in the DC area for a minute. You're born in the Savannah area. I used to live there when I was a kid, but we're going to talk about just all those things and just kind of maybe even touch upon like Jacksonville as a whole and kind of the business climate in the city and just kind of what you're working on and what your future looks like.
Love it. Looking forward to it. Glad to be here. Great to see you, man.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you kind of responding to a post I put out on LinkedIn. I was just saying, hey man, I'm in Jacksonville. If there's anybody who's looking to be on my podcast, let me know. And, you responded. So I was very grateful for that. And thank you for coming in and on short notice and, being here with me today.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
So I was looking at your profile and, tell me if I'm wrong. It looks like you were enlisted Army and then you actually then went to West Point.
Yeah.
That's pretty unique. Kind of tell me that story if you don't mind.
Yeah. I started thinking about financial independence as a 10th grader in high school. I was an athlete. When my basketball scholarship fell through coming out of high school, I turned down my academic scholarships and enlisted in the Army. And as soon as I got to my unit, I immediately enrolled in college courses, continued to play sports. And as a result of that activity, one of my professors, her husband was a West Pointer. She knew my company commander, and they approached me about the idea of going to West Point. Now, I had no intention of going. I actually had a disdain for West Point officers just because of what my experiences were. But because they were willing to support the process, even if I didn't believe they would, I did continue to do the process. And so fortunately, I was in a position academically and with my profile as a high schooler to be, to have the criteria. And lo and behold, as I was going through that process, I got a knock on the door from my first sergeant saying that we're going to be deployed to Operation Desert Shield out of Germany. And we deployed, and I found myself in the desert. They kept sending paperwork even while I was there. And then one night on patrol, as I was walking the perimeter during Operation Desert Storm, I said, Lord, if you allow me to make it back, I'll never waste a day of my life. That was the defining moment for me that inevitably led me to say, yes, I'm going to lock in to this idea. And so when we did get back to Germany, I got the appointment to the prep school, which was a 10-month program.
Okay.
I looked at that as a great way to get back into the academic frame of mind and to play basketball on the junior college type level, and did well there. And on February 26, 1992 at 10:30 a.m., I wrote out in Benjamin Franklin T, pros and cons, and made a decision to go to the academy.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I definitely want to get into that story more. I've met a few people over the years who also went to West Point and just great people. So I appreciate, I just want to thank you for your service as well. So you're a hooper, you play basketball. That was your sport. Are you familiar with Dennis Scott?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I think I chose my number 4 because of Dennis.
Nice. So he's actually from my hometown. He's actually from Hagerstown.
Hagerstown.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's, I know you were in the DC area. So I grew up in Hagerstown. Lived in Savannah. I told you before we started airing, I actually went to kindergarten in Savannah. But then when I was going into first grade, my dad is from Western Maryland. So we moved up to his hometown, and I spent the rest of my formative years in Western Maryland. And then I went to a couple colleges in Maryland. I actually played JUCO basketball at Hagerstown Community College, 97. And that's a whole long story how that all turned out. But yeah, Dennis Scott, he was the National Player of the Year from Hagerstown, but then he ended up transferring to a school in Virginia, just outside DC, Oakton, I think.
Oak Hill.
Okay. Yeah. So then he ended up going to Georgia Tech. I think he was the number 4 pick. Orlando, I think, was he Orlando's first pick?
Yeah.
First ever franchise pick. Then he teamed up with Shaq for all those years. But, Dennis would come back to Hagerstown and, just, go to camps and stuff like that. So as a younger kid, I would see him. So it was pretty cool. Now he's been broadcasting for years on NBA TV. So just to kind of see him, and a lot of people who I'm connected with on Facebook are like related to him, back in Hagerstown, Maryland. And, it's just great to kind of see what he did for the town and, what he still continues to do and gives back. I know his kids are like now going into college and playing ball. So were you point guard?
Yeah, point guard.
Yeah.
I did also was well-versed fundamentally. So there were times in which I did play down low even with my size just because, oftentimes, at least when I was growing up, the fundamentals weren't as high. And so because I was fundamentally sound, I found myself in different times being played even down on the blocks just because I had the right footwork, I had the positioning and could do that. So
that's so funny because I was kind of the same way. Like I'm 5'9", I think, but I kind of hit my growth spurt early. So when I was playing in like middle school, I've been my same height since middle school. So I wasn't the tallest kid, but I was like kind of above average then. So they're playing me like a forward. So I had to like basically learn how to do post moves and get all that down. And there's another really big basketball player out of Hagerstown, Rodney Monroe. I don't know if you know that name, but he went to NC State. He was actually, when he left NC State, he was the all-time leading scorer in ACC.
Oh, wow.
It's been broken many times since then, but this is the same era as Dennis Scott. Like they were kind of battling each other during the early 90s. But he was a 6'1" shooting guard. But, again, similar to Dennis, he'd be basically coming to all the summer camps and like just giving back. And he was basically teaching guards that, hey, you might find yourself in the post. So he was really big on just like, and he was, kind of use his strength or developed the strength to, be able to, do things in the post, still being undersized. So just you saying that, I was just kind of thinking about, man, that's so funny because I was thinking, kind of similar, similar path. But I'm sure playing sports had a lot to do with foundationally kind of everything that you did, from the military, being part of a team, and just understanding that whole dynamic to then in your career post, military to becoming an entrepreneur. Would you say like sports and being a part of a team is like very instrumental in who you are today?
Yeah, and as well as leadership, and then just those fundamentals, the basics, the willingness to go through the process of mundaneness, because entrepreneurship is very mundane, but it also correlates to battle drills in the military. So as I say it out loud, I can show various dots from being a point guard in basketball to quarterback in football to strong safety on defense. Those different positions corresponded to how I've performed in the civilian world or in different areas of my professional journey and leadership.
Yeah. I want to get back to the story. That's you being in Iraq for the first time we were there, and then I'm assuming like after you graduated from West Point, were you part of the other operations in Iraq later? No. Okay.
No. When I got from West Point, graduated from there, class of '96. I was 3rd Regimental Commander, branched infantry, and had my eyes set on the Ranger Battalion. The route in which I was taken was through Korea, but I knew that I was career by day because of the experience I had in combat at 19. As a result of that experience, I knew that if I had a family, I wouldn't stay in. And so, I chose the branch and chose the assignment, and I got into a relationship, which was going to be my exit strategy anyway. I said, if I got into a relationship, then I wouldn't stay in because I saw the adults that were older than me who had families when I was a single young soldier, what they experienced. And I said, I wouldn't be split-minded. I was like, if I'm doing my job, I now know what my job really is, which means that at the end of the day, I'm there to fight, America's wars. And so who knows when that's going to happen. And so therefore, I had a real world perspective on what my job was, and that was the thing that factored into my decisions with my career.
Gotcha. When did you get out?
2001.
Okay.
Yep.
Was this post or before 9/11?
Before.
Okay.
It was, I got out June 1st, 2001 was my last, my due out date, my ETS date. And then, of course, September 11th happened.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Were you thinking, did your mindset change of like, man, or were you like, oh, I'm kind of glad I got out? Obviously, you knew probably war again would be coming. Or did you think about, maybe going back in? Was any thoughts like that?
Didn't have any feelings about being glad I got out because truly I was a soldier.
Yeah.
I was truly career by day. The soldier is still in me.
Yeah.
And the service aspect wasn't dependent upon being in uniform. I'm truly, as I reflect, as I'm just turning 53, that I am truly pretty much the same guy, the same regiment. The things that I did prior to the military as well as throughout the military were just things that were accentuated. And so when 9/11 happened, it was, I was working at the Missile Defense Agency on Columbia Pike, and that was right across from the Pentagon. Mm-hmm. And on that particular day, I just heard a sound that naturally caused me to push back from my desk, turn to the left, which was a big glass, and I could then see over where the Pentagon was at.
Wow.
And I just heard and saw a blast. And so we evacuated and walked down, and I just walked back home. But beyond that, it was more of wondering if they were going to call me back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy to be that close to it when it happened. I remember, so I graduated college in 2001, and I played junior college basketball because my goal was to play D1, and didn't work out how I thought. Junior college is basically 50 guys coming in, and they don't know who's going to stick around. And I was like kind of the local, I was from the local area, and usually a couple, like one or two local kids kind of make the squad. And the coach was like, "Hey man, we just got way too many people here. Scott, we need you to redshirt." I'm like, "Okay, I can do that." He's like, then you'll have 2 more years here. I'm like, "Dude, I'm not staying in junior college for 3 years. I came here to play. I didn't know that you're going to make me a redshirt." So when I told him I wasn't going to stay in the program for 3 years, that I was going to be out after I got my associate's degree. By the time my sophomore year came along, he's like, we ain't got a spot for you anymore. So I ended up transferring to Washington College, which is on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. It's a small Division III school. My brother ended up going there right out of high school. He's a year older than me, and I thought I was going to kind of resume my basketball career, but things didn't work out because now it was like kind of 2 years of not really playing. But even though I was kind of working out and everything, but I used to DJ, and kind of grew up pretty poor. I grew up in the projects in Hagerstown. My mom, she's from Vietnam, so my parents divorced when I was 8. So my dad's from Maryland. 2 years after we moved to his hometown, they ended up getting divorced. And my mom, she had no formal education, can't read or write. We ended up in the projects, and so I played basketball. I was a hip hop guy and started DJing, and ended up realizing I was pretty good at it. And I just started doing gigs. So in college now I'm doing bigger gigs. I'm like, man, I want to play basketball. But if I'm not getting any love from the coaches, like I got 2 gigs this weekend, I can make a couple $1,000. Like, why am I gonna sit here and struggle, not even just ride the bench? So I just made the decision that, all right, man, I got to make some money. I'm gonna quit playing basketball. Stop pursuing a dream and just kind of DJ. So that's what I ended up doing. But so in 2001, I graduated from Washington College. I got this business management degree. I started with Bechtel Corporation out of college. And I didn't know anything about it. Even though I grew up in the projects, and I guess I was kind of blue collar, but I didn't do anything with construction, like auto mechanic, nothing. I just played sports. And so they said, "Hey, Scott, we're building this power plant in Texas. They need some help with the project financials. You want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." So I'm there for like 2 weeks. I still don't even really know what the company does. So they sent me there, and it's this $1 billion project, this power plant that they're building. And I was good with spreadsheets, doing analysis and things like that. And there was nothing else to do but to work. And I just put my head down and I worked, and I quickly made a name for myself. So I'm there for a couple months. Then September 11th happened, 2001. And, so internet wasn't so good, especially on our very rural job sites. So we're like, what is going on? So we're like, we're on our computers trying to go to like CNN.com or whatever. Like, and then people are calling, and, then we found out about the attack. And it was just crazy. And so I was now dating my now wife. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That kind of happened right afterwards. But then there was the DC sniper right after that. And so my wife, when we started dating, she went to George Mason. So she's in Fairfax. I got this going on. I'm like, man, there's so much crazy stuff like happening. But I ended up moving to Fairfax, Virginia back in 2003. So I stayed with this company, Bechtel, for a couple years. But they moved me around every few months to different projects. And I knew getting married, I didn't want that lifestyle, like to be married and just have to pick up and like go wherever the company said. So I decided that probably was, even though it was a great company to be, I'm glad I got my start there, but I'm like, man, I can't have this type of lifestyle. So I'm getting a job in DC for Jacobs Engineering, and did that for a few years. My wife was going to George Mason, and then eventually, when we started to talk about having kids and have family, we wanted to move back to our hometown, or at least near our hometown, just so we would have family who could be available. And fortunately for me, because there wasn't really any jobs, but this defense contractor, Sierra Nevada Corporation, just set up shop at one of the hangars. They started like basically acquiring a bunch of hangars at the Hagerstown Airport. So I didn't know anything about aerospace or anything like that, but I had good project management skills, good analytical skills. So I ended up getting hired on as an analyst. And this company basically took regular commuter aircraft like King Air B350s, and they would like missionize them with like radars and EOIR cameras, tactical communications and stuff. So I was there for 7 years. And even though I never served in the military, but, basically our aircraft was supporting the Afghanistan and Iraqi war. And I got to meet a lot of, military people, operators and things like that, my 7 years there. But you eventually end up in, you get out in 2001. So now did you basically set up roots in DC?
Yeah. So I had that one of the reasons I chose the old guard at Arlington was because it would be a great place for me to make that transition.
Yeah.
And at the time I was married, and my wife was working on her PhD at the University of Georgia, and consequently it was political science. So her whole desire was to be on Capitol Hill. And so that 90-day window, terminal leave, is when I knew that if I didn't take action right then I would have to deal with not having a history of income, which was required in buying real estate. And so I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant, pulled a couple of concepts from those books that in turn gave me an aha moment. And then from there went out and acquired over $1 million in assets in 90 days, which led me to Cumberland, because one of those purchases in that 90-day window was a 40-unit apartment complex in Cumberland, Maryland. And transitioned, took a job as a senior systems analyst with the Missile Defense Agency. Did my MBA at George Washington University, financial banking at Georgetown. And I say really grew up there as an adult, because up until that time, I've been overseas with my military, either in Germany as an enlisted soldier or West Point up New York, but then back to Korea. So DC Metro area was a phenomenal experience, great lifestyle, hate the Beltway.
Yeah.
But really enjoyed myself up there.
Yeah. What years were you at GW?
2002 was when I finished. So yeah, 2000.
They had some good basketball teams back then, I think. I'm trying to remember. They had that coach who was there forever. Can't remember. But then I remember when George Mason had their run to the Final Four. I think that was 2004. That was just awesome, because I lived in Fairfax and my wife was going there, and it was just like for them to be that Cinderella and make it to the Final Four. I know some people who went to GW too, and Georgetown, great institutions. So when did you kind of know that eventually, because your company now is global.
Life is Rich Global.
Life is Rich Global, right? You've been doing that for couple decades now.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it started out with me being a personal trainer, and then from there, I started teaching people how to apply the habits of physical fitness to their life. I then did my MBA at GW and started teaching people how to apply the habits of physical fitness to business. Then I did financial planning at Georgetown, started teaching people how to apply the habits of physical fitness to personal finance. So that whole process has been the thing of being accustomed to someone having a goal, me doing an assessment, then laying out a plan, and then helping a person execute the plan.
Yeah.
So again, that whole idea of being a point guard and being a quarterback, that's the same type of visualization that I have when I'm engaging. And it's funny, even as I'm speaking to you and I'm saying that, I can literally see myself in the moment, like I'm in the back like this, and I can see. So, and even trying to explain it, it's like, that's what God has given to me, that strategic lens of being able to see all that's going around and then hone in on.
No doubt, man. I just think about, I was a point guard too. And like, I always, like, I wasn't the fastest. I'm not that big. I'm like, like I said, barely 5'9", but I just thought like I had elite core vision. Like, unfortunately, they didn't keep assist stats when I was in high school. I mean, this is like in the mid to late 90s. Like, why is no one tracking assists? I probably had double-digit assists. Like, my senior year in high school, we had the tallest team in the state of Maryland. We had a 7-foot freshman. One of my best friends was 6'8". We started like two guys 6'5", and then me 5'9". Like, we were tall. And especially for a high school team, we weren't that good, but we had a really tall team. But because I had so much size on my team, man, I just coming down, throwing like alley oops, whatever, like just people getting easy baskets. But it was just I just thought I had really good court vision because I just kind of saw things kind of unfolding, a couple steps before they happened.
Well, Magic Johnson was my favorite player. And even my high school class ring had Magic written on it.
Nice.
So to that end, always about the assists, always about the play. Yeah.
Do you play now? You play anymore? You shoot around? You do anything?
Shoot around.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a basketball in the back of my trunk.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would gladly stop at a court and shoot around.
Yeah. I've been getting out there a lot. I saw this video the other day. Someone sent it to me, and it made me think. It was this video of this 90-year-old who was a gymnast, and she was like doing her parallel bar routine. And my friend who sent it to me, he's probably closer to your age. I'm 45. He was like early 50s, and he's one of the friends that we send memes to each other. Shout out DJ Titus. So we were always sending each other videos and stuff, and then I watched the video. And I was just like thinking, you know what? That's amazing that she's 90 years old doing it. But I felt like her secret was she probably never stopped. She probably never stopped doing her routine. Probably started when she was a kid and just kept through. And it's like when you stop, obviously the body's not resting. It's harder to kind of restart. Because I've been trying to really get back into basketball shape. Not that I'm going to, just to play and have fun and to move around. And it's harder now, being mid-40s, to like really get back into it after a layoff. So I think the key, I was like just having this conversation with my wife yesterday. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go out there 3 to 4 times a week. And if it's just me shooting around, just to keep that movement, just to keep it going. Like, not that I need to go play 5-on-5, with 20-year-olds, which I still do. And I still give them the business because it's funny because when I play with these young people, they think I'm like maybe in my 30s. Like, no, they don't know that I'm as old as I am. And then when I tell them I'm 45, man, then they start really feeling bad for themselves. Like, man, you're 45 and you're like giving me the business like this. But when you said kind of started personal training, the thing that kind of went into my head, I may even got this from you, was like health is wealth. Is that kind of one of your slogans?
It is, yeah.
And that I was the same conversation I was having with my wife yesterday. I was just saying, you know what? If you knew that you were going to, I probably took this from someone I just heard it from. Say you were going to die tomorrow, unless you had like $2 million to do this life-saving thing, right? You would figure out how to get that $2 million to, save your life. And I was trying to liken it to us because we're, both mid-40s. And I was just like, if you just put a little bit, because she used to go to Pilates every day, or most of the week, but then she's like, it's too expensive. I don't go like you do. So we ended up buying like a Pilates machine to kind of probably is not used as much as it was when she had the membership to the Pilates gym. I'm like, that's why you pay to go to something, because it's just this different motivation. It takes you outside of the house, where when you're in the house, it takes more to motivate you to like go to like your garage gym and like work out. And I was like, it's worth paying that membership, $200 a month or whatever it is, if it's going to get you to do more Pilates, right? You might think, oh, well, we bought this machine and we have it in our house. So, but if you're not using it, then it's still better to go restart that membership, just to get you back out there. So I was just thinking, everything we do is, at least for me, my mindset, like my health is more important than any money I can make, and mobility too. So even within health, I think mobility is like the most important thing, because I think about like older people. As soon as they lose their mobility, I feel like that's when things like really like take a downturn, and like, their quality of life, and how many years they have that. So I'm like, man, I'm 45. I'm going to go shooting hoops. I'm going to be playing basketball, work out pretty much every day. But that's just my mindset. I want to still be at an elite level, because I feel like even at 45, I still have many decades left of going out there, creating great business or whatever it is that, God has in store for me.
Yeah. It's a lifestyle, and I'll tell you, it's about intentionality. I came into 2024 with the theme of freedom of time, money, relationships, purpose. And I said the path to that is discipline and consistency. And so then what I said was I was going to commit to waking up at 4 a.m. every day for 2024. And I'd set a goal of rowing 1,000,000 meters on the Concept 2 rower and do that in 2024. Well, Scott, day 1 of January 2024, I got up at 4 a.m. I rowed 10,000 meters. Day 2, day 3, day 4. And I looked up, and it was 125 days into the new year in which I had rowed 10,000 meters per day to a total of 1.25 million meters.
Wow.
On a goal that I set for the entire year. And then I realized that the rowing season is actually May through April. So I did 1,000,000 meters for 22-23 because I collapsed the time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm at 90,000 meters doing it again for the remaining of the year. And so that came with a decision. That made a decision of saying, let me just do this, because it wasn't looking at the million. It was about, let me just be consistent. And I didn't commit to doing it in a time frame other than the whole year.
Yeah.
And I didn't commit to doing it every day.
Yeah.
But momentum. I said, I did it. Well, and I didn't go to bed saying I was going to get up the next morning and do it. I just said, the next day I'm going to get up, and then I'll decide if I'm going to row. And it was based upon how my body felt. And so that's one thing. And the other thing I'll tell you is that wellness is the foundation of everything that I do. As an executive coach, as a business coach, I provide a holistic wellness solution that also ties into finances, because I look at spiritual, mental, emotional, relational, physical, and financial. The thing about the financial part is that if you don't have your financial wellness in order, then that can lead to financial worry, which is of the mind. Mm-hmm. Then financial worry can go to financial stress, which is of the body, and then financial anxiety, which is the mind and the body. Mm-hmm. And so the decisions that I've made and decisions that I really speak to people about is, number one, let's think about how long do you expect to live? And then what would you be doing? What would you like to be doing in that last 5 years? And then once you got that number, and then say, well, what do you need to be doing today to ensure that you're in that condition so that you can then experience your last 5 years of life? And when you put it in that context, well, then that's when you can then start to backwards plan and say, okay, here's what I need to be doing right now so that I'm in this position in the last 5 years of my life.
Yeah.
And so I get excited about that. And like I said, I'm in a season now where I'm intentionally looking for other growth-minded people who in turn want to experience life better than they've ever experienced it. And wellness has to be a component of it. And so I made some decisions 8 years ago with how I spent my money, and then how I supplemented, and what environments I was in, that now is totally about green, natural, non-toxic, eco-friendly. It's about if I'm eating meat, there's no antibiotics, no hormones. It's about supplementation and doing those things. And it's about habit forming behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, just, I'm thinking about so many other, like Tom Brady, you know, just people who are elite. Like they talk about, instead of committing to like a singular outcome, commit to the process, the habit.
That's right.
Right. So you can't say, hey, I want to lose, 200 pounds. Commit to the habit of working out every day, good diet and all that. And then eventually you might lose the 200 pounds. Just like when you committed, even though you did set a goal of 1 million, but you committed to waking up at 4 a.m., you're going to do 10,000 nautical miles every day on the rowing machine or
Didn't even commit to that.
Oh, yeah. So, but you're just doing a habit.
Did it by habit.
And then
I started it and said, well, why not do another 10?
That's awesome. So executive business coach, like when did you like give yourself that title, or when did you say, hey, this is what I am? Like what, I know you kind of told a little bit about your story to kind of where you are, but when did you know I want to be this executive business coach? And I feel like that's my purpose and that's what I want to do. Like what was the mindset and kind of story?
I framed the area and the audience this year. I then went into the space and I did it because when I looked at all of my background with being in the leadership arena, from being an infantry officer ranger to being the former CFO of an Inc. 500 fast growing company, to having done real estate, to having owned a franchise, to being a licensed wealth advisor, all the different things which I've done put me in a position to provide insights of success. And business would be the way for me to give people the greatest advantage, because in my book, I talk about entrepreneurship must be the foundation of any wealth building plan. Mm-hmm. And because of that, if someone is working with me, working with a business coach as a business owner, I'm 100% tax deductible. So my big mission, my big pull is based upon things that I wrote about in my book, because Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth is a principle-centered, biblically based leadership program focused on personal growth and entrepreneurship. Every chapter begins with scripture, but then I say, so what? How do you take God's word and apply it on a daily basis? But I cover leadership as the answer, the cash flow danger, it happened to me, become an entrepreneur, choosing the right entity, raising capital, asset protection, protecting your financial privacy, reducing your taxes, retirement planning, residual income retirement planning, estate planning, and Life is Rich. So business coach gives me the broadest context to help the masses to be educated, equipped, and empowered, recognizing that there are two different tax systems. There's a tax system for the employee and a tax system for the business owner. Mm-hmm. So what I'm speaking about is just getting every W-2 employee to recognize that if you're in the tax system for the employee, then that means drive taxation, whereas the business system for the entrepreneur is meant to drive economy. Mm-hmm. And everyone can be in that system at the same time.
Right.
And that's the insight that I provide and the recommendations that I provide. And then when people think, well, I'm not an entrepreneur, I don't know what to do, I can't do that, or I can't afford it. I'm like, no, you just need to know what's required. And it's really just three things, Scott. Number one, you got to have an intent to earn a profit. Number two, you got to do something on a consistent and ongoing basis. And then number three, you got to track your time, your money, and your activity. Once I get a person to understand those things, well, then it opens up a whole new world, because then it goes to me saying you are the asset. And as the asset, you got to recognize that if you believe that you are an heir, because life is rich means live in fullness every day, realize I'm Christ's heir.
Oh.
Then what you got is you got the opportunity to recognize that everything's already in your hand, but no good father is going to release the keys to the car if you can't drive. So what do you have to do? You got to commit to growing your capacity. And that's where I come in. Hire me for the benefit of investing in yourself through a relationship with me so that I can help you to grow your capacity by leveraging all that I've done under one umbrella. Because that's the thing really about my background, is that people have done things in different pockets, but very few people have been all the things that I've been and has the ability to teach and guide and lead from the front.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love your background, all your experience. Tell me about the book. You got it right there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when was it what was the process? Was it like many years of kind of just kind of capturing some thoughts, or did you like, hey, one day I'm just gonna like, write this thing? How did it all come together?
It came together because I was at an event observing, and I pulled the guy that was a six-figure income earner who was running the event to the side, and I said, man, you do an incredible job with creating the environment. You got the excitement. I said, but let me ask you a question. What do you do after the emotional charge? After the people are full of excitement, what's the thing that's going to be the anchor? And he kind of looked at me and was like, well, what are you talking about? And I said, gave him some financial information like, you really have something here. And if you're talking about making money, do you realize how small of an amount someone needs to make in order for it to really be significant? Well, as a result of some sound bites that I gave him, he asked me to come and speak on this conference call. I came and spoke that Monday. The following week, he asked me to come back because of the response. And so because it was a great response back to back, it caused me to say, wait a minute, there's a market of people out here that actually would like to hear what I'm saying. And consequently, I was inspired to write it. And what I did was I pulled together talks that I'd done and notes that I'd written. And that's the thing that caused me to be able to put it into a table of contents and then pull it together. So I pulled it together probably in less than a month, then had it edited and all that. But it's Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth. As I said, it's a principle-centered, biblically based leadership program focused on personal growth and entrepreneurship. Every chapter begins with scripture, but then I say, so what? How do you take God's word and apply it on a daily basis? This was birthed out of my experience in combat, live in fullness every day, realize I'm Christ's heir. That's the message. And I cover all the subjects that would allow someone to be able to go have the conversation with that professional, but be in a position where they can actually ask the right questions and still be able to guide and direct. Because I went into the financial services because I was getting cold called by people and they didn't know my background. They didn't know I was a West Pointer. They didn't know I had an MBA. They didn't know I had financial planning. And they didn't know I was actually looking for an advisor. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because I didn't want my emotions driving my decisions. As a soldier, what I realized is that soldiers or persons at any position or title are fully capable. They may just be in a position where they're just in a position, but it had nothing to do with their capability. I was that soldier. And so that whole idea of delegating was something that I was good with. I'm like, no, I know talented people regardless of what their degrees or non-degrees, no judgment. I'm like, nah, they're smart people that can do any and everything. So I was looking for that advisor, but because of how they responded to my questions, it made me wonder if they were just salespeople or not. And that's what took me into the business. And that's what brought me to Jacksonville sight unseen. And within a week of being here, I realized that my background and experiences didn't matter because it wasn't actually a job of making people money. It was a sales job. I needed to have enough people saying I was a great guy. That was a surprise. After being overseas, living up north, performing at the highest level, then coming back with the excitement of I'm gonna come back south as a young black male and really make impact, and then had the experiences of really always being asked to lead because I threw myself into the community. Founding board president of a nonprofit, Mayor's Human Rights Commission, served Leadership Jacksonville alumni. I did things that showed that I was maneuvering around and well known, but the business wasn't coming that was commensurate with the leadership roles I was being asked to perform in. So then I said, I wonder if it's me or if it's the market. So I threw my name in the hat for the White House Fellows Program. There are 5,000 applicants, 32 finalists, 15 selected. I was one of the 32 finalists in the nation. After that experience, I said, no, it's not me. This is the market. And so now I have to decide, do I stay here or do I leave the market and go somewhere else? Left being a financial advisor to become CFO of an Inc. 500 fast-growing company. We did well. We were 2 times back-to-back Inc. 500 fast-growing company. 90 days after the second time, we shut our doors.
Oh, wow. That's like a high to low. Like
that's
that
right.
Fast. Wow.
That's right. And that was one of the things that inspired me to write the book. Because through that experience, I was good initially, but then people in that 40-unit apartment complex in Cumberland, Maryland started losing their jobs. I was good for taking care of the property for year 1, year 2, but year 3, I was like, okay, now I'm throwing good money after bad money. Now what I need to do? And so through that experience, my Valley experience of going from $5 million to zero, from a 6,000 square foot home to a 10 by 12 room, is when I realized in that space, the thing that I needed to be talking about was it's not about net worth. It's about cash flow. So I wrote Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth to reveal that because not everyone has been at a high level and then still had the wherewithal to be able to talk about it in the valley because I never lost myself. Because my faith, not just my faith, but also because I was never defined by my stuff and I always made my money by the stuff. So that's really the thing that really makes this book different. So one of the reviews on Amazon is that it's Rich Dad Poor Dad on steroids. So that's a plug for those of you out there that are readers that know that book. Yeah, that's the backstory to it.
Yeah, that book is so instrumental. I know that you mentioned that, and Cash Flow Quadrant being one of your first books like that you read. I read that book 20 plus years ago, and I still reference the ESBI quadrant all the time, active income versus passive income. But you just said something very interesting about cash flow versus net worth, because I don't know if you know Ryan Pineda, but he's a real estate investor based out of Las Vegas. I love this guy. He's half Asian like me, so he gets bonus points for that. But he talks about obviously the cash flow, is very important. Net worth is important, but he teaches a lot of people where you have to again, not everyone may not agree with it. I'd love to get your thoughts. He teaches people to, yes, you want to eventually build like a portfolio, have things that, create passive income and all that, but you got to learn a skill that gives you, that can create like really high revenue. So he teaches things like, hey, learn how to like wholesale real estate, where you can get like a $30,000 check from a singular transaction, get some money first, learn how to do that. Then, once you have that down, then think about like the long-term game. Because a lot of people think, well, because there's so much information out there, like, oh, well, do I do this? Do I do this and this? But a lot of people just got to make some money initially to kind of get themselves out of like that poverty line or that line of barely getting by first, like solve that and then think kind of longer term. I mean, there's definitely people who can do both at the same time, but not everyone can kind of have that type of focus to be able to be successful and doing, following both like strategies. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my recommendation, again, because I'm the guy that has not only the academic background and the professional background, but I've always been an entrepreneur. The reason I say that entrepreneurship must be the foundation of any wealth building plan is that I'm talking skill development. The most profitable skill is speaking. The most profitable profession is sales. The most profitable knowledge is financial. And so given the fact
we're gonna clip that. That was so on point, man.
So given the fact that I am someone that went down the lane of real estate, but not just single family. My largest single acquisition is a 40-unit apartment complex. That puts me in a different category. Because I have done business ownership and I've owned a franchise, a tax franchise, puts me in a different category. Because I've done information marketing, where I'm a speaker and I'm a coach, I understand that lane. The thing that changed my life, though, was the week I graduated from West Point, I got introduced to what are personal growth and development and entrepreneurship via network marketing. The reason that changed my life was because I never knew about picking up books and going to seminars. Yeah, it wasn't because of an opportunity, because I was getting ready to go and serve as an infantry officer. So I wasn't drawn into a financial opportunity. What I was drawn into was an environment that I didn't know existed. And that forever changed my life. So when I speak around the world, I tell people, take over my West Point degree, take over my MBA from George Washington, financial planning from Georgetown. When I learned to pick up books and go to seminars and be around successful people, that's what laid the foundation for everything else I've done in my life. So my recommendation for people when it comes down to priority, cash flow priority, identify and work to create income that's sustainable, predictable, repeatable, and growable. Sustainable, predictable, repeatable, and growable. The fact is, if the cash flow is going to be able to take care of those things that will not stop, i.e. your bills will never stop. Right. And that's the experience that I gained as a result of that I can speak to and teach from, is that I'm someone that had that which was celebrated, which is, again, net worth. But the fact of the matter is that the bills continued to come. And when my cash flow got tight, then that's the thing that changed my lifestyle. And so what I'm on a mission to do is really bring that type of awareness and then provide a turnkey solution with helping people to understand how to think versus what to think, which is what separates me out from others as well, because that's what I did with my soldiers, knowing if I got killed on the battlefield, the mission still has to take place.
Yep.
So I'm in a mission right now to bring that message forward, to get people to, one, recognize that if you are right now in a situation where you are earning less than $100,000 and you did get a 3% pay raise, that 3% pay raise before taxes is still going to be less than $3,000. You got to have a base salary of $200,000, get a 3% pay raise to see an increase of just $6,000. If you don't know those numbers, you're not looking at that, then you're really turning away opportunities to make a small amount that would be greater than what you could ever do waiting in your job.
Absolutely.
So it's not about what you make, it's about what you keep.
Yeah.
And that's the message that I'm really looking to continue to get forward with people, to say, hey, listen, do something. You've got the talent. Just be willing to learn the skill. And it's not hard. It's just 6 things that you've got to do in order to be in a position to create income and be valuable, because money follows value. That's another note. Money follows value.
Yep.
Number one, when I talk about those activities, make a list. And what does that mean? That just means identify who your audience is. What's your prospect list? Who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to serve? Identify a large enough audience with people that have a problem, that they know they have the problem, and they are actively seeking a solution, and they've got the money to pay for the solution, and they got the willingness to pay for it. All of those things. Don't talk about you just passionate about something, you want to just do something. No, go broke doing that.
Yep.
Number 2, you got to reach out to them. You got to have a conversation. Number 3, you got to set appointments, because professionals work by appointment. Number 4, you got to make the presentation, whatever that is, beginning with yourself. Number 5, follow up. And this is where most people fall short, because they don't know that 2% of yeses happen on the first touch, 3 on the second, 5 on the third, 10 on the fourth. But 80% of your yeses happen on the 5th through the 12th touch. And then number 6, I say open the relationship. I don't say close.
Yeah.
The business starts whenever you say yes, and now I'm going to open up the relationship so we can continue to go deeper.
Yep.
So Scott, those are the things that I get excited about, because much like when people responded to me on that conference call that caused me to say, wait a minute, there are people out there that want to hear this message, that need to hear it. In the book, I said in 2013, if you're reading, that most people don't have enough to fund their plan. If you're reading this now, you got 10 years to do something. The bad news is that most people wait too long. With 2013 plus 10 years is 2023. We can see what 2023 looks like, and now 2024. So,
yeah, man, we're gonna click that blueprint, those 6 points, man. That was fire. I also got introduced to network marketing really early in my career, and that was pretty much the foundation for me of exploring personal development and working on myself. I don't have the same pedigree as you do. I didn't go to West Point. I didn't go to GW. I got a junior college degree. I got my bachelor's degree from a small liberal arts school. I got an MBA from an online program. But man, my whole foundation primarily is that investment in myself, personal development, starting with the OG books from Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, all the way through kind of the people I follow now, Patrick Bet-David, Dan Martell. All these guys, it's just a continual work on myself and developing and learning and studying the people with success and implementing their strategies into like what I'm doing. What people, who do you follow? Like, who's your guys that, whether they're from the classics or to like modern people today? Like, who are you listening and watching?
I'm very intentional about the seasons in life I'm in. So like I did 15 books that during that same 125 days of the start of the year, I consumed 15 books, either directly reading or through Audible. And the Dan Sullivan was a large group in that. The book that I really honed in on was Who, Not How.
Yeah.
The importance of that particular idea of being able to say, you know what, in this season of life, I've got to be wise of just being clear about the vision, and then in turn, bring the components to the table that are the experts to be able to move that without me doing anything, saying, here's the outcome. Now you bring your gifts and your talents to the table to make that particular thing happen. there's a book on execution and 4 disciplines of execution. I think it's called 4 disciplines of execution. That's another book title wise, because again, it's about execution. You have all the great ideas in the world, but if you don't execute, then what? When I look back, the first book that I read for this year was a reread, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
Again, a fundamental book. This year already, I did a reread of How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
That was a reread for this particular year. Myron Golden, a friend as well as a mentor, someone that I dial into, Alex Hormozy, another person that, once again, in those particular areas with Myron Golden, Make More Offers, really honing in on the whole idea of offers and what that really means. And then with Alex Hormozy, just the whole idea of that whole idea of, leads, and then the process of making offers, and then just that mindset of having enough volume, having enough activity to do so. I'm reading right now Fanatical Prospecting. Why? Because that right there is the most critical piece for me to get to my end goal, which means I got to talk to enough people. I've got to really be clear about the volume of activity and make sure that, like we talked about with your wife, when you talked about the whole thing, even with you getting started with on the basketball court, stopping and starting, well, the thing is you got to do it on a consistent basis. The worst thing is saying that you're going to be doing this activity and then you have a break, because it's just going to take more to get back to that starting point.
Yeah.
So daily dose every day of something, but very intentional with the end state being freedom, time, money, relationships, purpose.
Yeah. Do you follow Cody Sanchez? You know that name? Mm-mm. She's basically her thing is like building like a baby Berkshire Hathaways. So it's like kind of business acquisition, but not like you have to be a big private equity company, like just the individual, like small, like she buys boring businesses, things that are strong cash flowing, but takes very little operations to do it, like laundromats or a lot of trades companies where people like some baby boomers who owns this type of companies are retiring. They don't have an exit. They're either just going to let those things dissolve. But the reason I mention her because she has a lot of sayings that I love. But her one saying that has just resonated with me is, "You don't want to be rich, you want to be free." And I'm like, man, that's really the ultimate thing. At least for me personally, we're at the stages for my life. My nickname's Free. My DJ name is Scott Free, but I just love the word free, freedom. That's just been something that's been, top of mind my whole life. After when I kind of took that on as my handle, I just always been thinking about being free.
Yeah.
Geography, income, free to think what you want, free to speak what you want, and just putting yourself in a position where you can't be controlled, you can't be silenced, whatever, and fortunately, like those things are kind of under attack, nowadays in these days. You got to be sensitive, but to build something where you can't be canceled, you can't be silenced, you can worship the way that you want. For me, that's the ultimate. That's what I've been striving for.
And that's the thing that I said at first experience that brought me to this season. I walked away at 32 because I was able to run my numbers and see that I did have that freedom when my daughter was born, because all I want to do is be that dad that was around.
Yeah.
The experience in combat is what put me in that mindset of knowing that life wasn't promised. Mm-hmm. My commitment to working with women was based upon me saying, if anything unexpectedly ever happened to me, I would have sold into the lives of women such that she'd have role models that I'd want her to follow. And so I've always been purpose-driven and very intentional in that particular manner. And that whole idea of being able to have the option is what I've always strived for. And like I said, I'm in a rebirth season now because it's based upon me being intentional about telling the story and then inviting others to come along if that's something that they have the courage to think about.
Yeah.
Think about what I just now said. Having the courage to think about actually being free.
Yeah.
So many people are constrained by the socialization of doing things the way that everyone else is doing it and not being cognizant of, well, do you really want that outcome? Mm-hmm. It's insane.
Yeah.
But if you don't have environments where you're talking about that, if you don't have the relationships where you're engaged like that, if it's not being challenged, then we'll continue to get the same thing. And isn't as a parent, I'm fighting against that because though my children have grown up with this whole exposure to all of this, what I realize though is when they go to school, they're around and impacted and influenced by kids who've been raised by other parents that don't have my background
Right.
and those mindsets. So inevitably,
Yeah.
they're more like everyone else when they had the exposure because that's that's what it
Right.
was. So
I feel you on that. Let me, I want to transition into your faith.
sure.
Definitely person of strong faith. Was that something that you've, that's been you your whole life? Like, kind of, not that you have to necessarily get into your whole testimony, but kind of, how's that kind of so much at the forefront of who you are and how you lead as an entrepreneur?
That's what I grew up. I grew up with a praying family, with my grandparents and being in church on every Sunday, and being on the basketball court early Sunday morning on this dirt court, and my grandfather standing on the porch and saying, "Speedy, come on in here and get ready for church." And me leaving the basketball court, getting trained up to go, and singing in the choir, and doing the Easter speeches. All that stuff was my background. What I praise God for is the fact that I'm not religious. I don't talk about Christianity. I'm a believer. And the reason I draw that distinction is because when people talk about Christianity and talk about this or that, I'm like, I don't see the consistency between them. So I see, well, wait a minute, what is it? Y'all ain't talking the same thing. And then when I think about historical perspective of blacks in the United States and what that looks like and how Christianity has been used to entangle, it's like, no, kingdom mindset. I'm a believer. I'm a Christ follower. I can go to the word. I can listen to the word. And I thank God for being able to understand. Miles Monroe says that knowledge is information, understanding is comprehension, but wisdom is applied knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge is information, understanding is comprehension, wisdom is applied knowledge. And what I see across the board is the gap where most people that are in the body don't have understanding on a practical basis. And that's what makes Life is Rich an assignment for me, is because it's a principle-centered, biblically based leadership program focused on personal growth, on entrepreneurship. It's the practical application of God's words. To me saying, okay, God's word, which is why every chapter begins with scripture. But then I'm saying, okay, now that you got that out, so what? Do you believe it?
Yeah.
And if you do believe it, what would you really be doing?
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm a big believer in, I think it's so important that you have to read from, Genesis to Revelation. Like I read scripture every day. And I think if you don't have the context of the beginning to the end, you can go and kind of zone in and zero in on certain scriptures and get some really good stuff on it. But I think you got to kind of understand, in the beginning all the way through, the very end of Revelation. I guess, sorry, you're ringing through me. All right, we're going to edit this I don't even know where I was going. I thought, are we good on the cameras?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
40-something%, we're good.
Okay.
You're an hour in, so.
Okay. Scripture every day. Okay. Now that's awesome, man. I really appreciate you kind of sharing on your faith like that. And I'm the same thing. Like, I'm not a religious person. I'm a person with a relationship with my personal God. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And I live to honor him and all that I do. What's that scripture? Whether you eat or drink, do it all for the glory of God. It's one of my favorite scriptures. I just want to kind of end on Jacksonville, man. So you've been here for
20 years.
20 years. I've been here for 9. And I was drawn to this city. I used to live in California, and I moved here 9 years ago to start my company because I knew, a couple of reasons. My mom and sister, they moved here my freshman year in college. So they were already kind of in the area for about 15 years before I decided to move here. But I was born in coastal South Carolina. And I just remembered as a kid, I used to live in Hilton Head. I remember going to the beach all the time as a kid. We didn't live in Hilton Head because we had money. My mom's sister was a doctor, so we lived with her. That's how we ended up there. But I was just very bullish on Jacksonville. It's one of the only 28 cities that have an NFL franchise. It reminded me a lot of other cities. It reminds me of LA in the way that it's spread out and has multiple neighborhoods within it, just like LA is basically kind of built out. It reminds me of Baltimore Inner Harbor with its big old river going through it. Obviously, there's not as much to do downtown Jacksonville as there is Inner Harbor, Baltimore. And the best thing that those that it has over like, Baltimore is like it actually has a beach that's 15, 20 miles away. So I'm very bullish on the city. I know, I moved my office to here to downtown a couple years ago just because I wanted to be near the heart of the action with all the development that's happening. What's your outlook on Jacksonville? Like, what do you think about it?
I think that, with the work that's being done now with the emphasis on small businesses, makes it a great opportunity for, again, those things I'm talking about and the timing of everything with the dollars and the support from a policy standpoint. Gregory Grant is over at JCEP.
Yeah, I love
so
Greg.
He's doing a great job with
He's a good guy.
really leading that effort. And so to that end, and then with the continue to grow, I think that the things I really appreciate, which keeps me here, is, again, the lifestyle. The fact of the matter is that the weather, the temperature, the water, still room to grow. And I think that just as more effort is put towards talented people coming together, then it'll be more like the things I've experienced in the New Yorks, the DCs, areas like that.
Yeah.
But that's really where I see the only gap is. The gap is still yet mindset-wise that there's some levels that still have to take place.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's one of the most populous cities as far as like people relocating from other areas. It's like the first major city as you're heading into Florida. So a lot of people set up their roots here who are looking to be a transplant from, the Mid-Atlantic or whatever. I feel like I meet more people not from Jacksonville, at least it's been that way for a long time, than people who are native to the area. So the city's definitely grown a whole lot. Nate, man, I really appreciate hearing your story, man. We got so much in common, and man, I got so many nuggets from that. You're a phenomenal speaker. Like, you're elite, and you already know that. Like, when I was just watching some of your content online, and I'm like, man, this is going to be a really good episode. So I really appreciate you coming on and dropping some of that knowledge. What's your future outlook? And after you share that, like, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Thanks, first and foremost, Scott, for having me. The thing I want to leave out with is a story that I didn't share about the book that I think is so powerful because it speaks to what I think anyone really needs to do and keep in mind when it comes to seeking opportunities. July 8th, 2015, I was leaving LA Fitness and I passed a pink Cadillac. I didn't see the person driving the vehicle, saw it as a status symbol, pulled on the side of the road. As she drove by, I flagged it down, and I gave her a copy of my book. I said, here, read this. If you get any value from me, pay for it later. She went left, I went right. She contacted me on July 26th, telling me she'd read it. She shared it with 30 of her directors. They all wanted it. From there, she asked to do a conference call with 200 of her ladies. I said, bring the husbands on. After that, she asked to do a live event. And then she paid $4,500 to work with me for 90 days as her coach. Wow. We developed a friendship, and then less than a year meeting at the stop sign, we married.
Oh, wow. How about that? That's amazing, man.
So I share that story because that's the value ladder. When you talk about those things and where I see myself moving forward, honestly, I'm just going to be doing more of what I've always done. The entry point, my core offering is that message of life is rich. That's my everything. I want everyone to have hope based upon who is hope. Live in fullness every day, realize I'm Christ's heir. Starting with that particular book, that in turn creates the next opportunity to be impacted by me in which other way. The highest and best impact is in a one-to-one coaching relationship, either for the business or for the organization. But it's for that person that sees that they have the potential and the desire to be more. The person that says, you know what, my best has yet to come. And I realize that I need to have someone watch me swing. I need someone in my life that will talk to me and give me truth and give me some things that in turn others that may be close to me want because of the relationship and not being sure about how stable that is. I want to be in a position where I'm continuously working with successful people like you, people that have a growth mindset that actually are looking outward and wanting to do more. Because again, the burden is heavy on me because in writing Life is Rich and having that statement about most people don't have enough to fund their plan, I bring in perspective that fills in the gap. Say, get all the advice you're getting from the professionals. I've been there, done that. I can tell you what they're going to tell you. That's why I wrote the book. But what I want to help you with is the real stuff of navigating life disruption. So as a business coach, I help growth-minded professionals prepare for unemployment, market volatility, retirement, and any other life disruption so that they can avoid or overcome financial hardship. It's really being able to be that vessel to be able to provide that stability as an infantry officer and saying, hey, follow me and let me help you to navigate this terrain because I've been there, done that. And I'm not just giving you my highlight reel. I'm telling you what really is and helping you to be able to, hey, here's what it's going to require of you character-wise to move through this particular season. And how do you take and monetize that story that you go through? Because that's the exciting part, is being able to give and give without any limitations.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So to find me, it's just simply lifeisrichglobal.com, lifeisrichglobal.com. And for a special offer, you can go to lifeisrichglobal.com/event special. And so as a special guest today, I offer that up to any of your listeners to go there and get a special deal.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Man, you have some for offers here. Go to check out Life is Rich Global, lifeisrichglobal.com. Check out my man, Nate Scott. Man, I really appreciate you being here, sharing so much knowledge with everybody. And if you are tuning in for the first time, follow us on YouTube at scottfreedevore, the Free Factor Podcast. You can find me at that handle at scottfreedevore on all social medias. Nate Scott, appreciate it. And you guys be blessed.
Real interviews, real guests, no actors. Real talk, get prepared for Free Factor.